Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name's Noah, and I came here to speak into the void today about the new Batman #1 from Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. But first, I would like to tell you guys about myself real quick. I started reading comic books at around, I want to say, 12 years old. I remember when I was a kid, I used to walk to the library and I would check out comic books. That's where I read New 52 Justice League, New 52 Batman. That's where I remember they had Black Mirror, Batman Black Mirror, and a bunch of other things like that. And that's what really sold me on the love of comic books at a young age. And then I did kind of dip off for a little while until I grew up and I got a job as a teenager, and I started buying comic books. And the first ones I went to the store and I bought Watchmen, Nightfall, and The Long Halloween. And they were all, I mean, obviously they're all amazing books. And that was my first reintroduction, and I've been collecting ever since. Anyway, let's get back to what you guys are here for. You guys are here to see and hear about the book. First, I wanted to tell you guys that before this even came out, I was very interested in the new design that they were taking with the character. I mean, not really new, just kind of like modernized, classic. I mean, classic blue. I do love the new logo. The new logo kind of reminds me of Nightwing a little bit, and I think that's pretty sick. It's kind of hard to see with the light. Maybe like that. Yeah, whatever. You see it. And so, we're starting off. Apparently Jim is no longer commissioner, and I don't know if that is something that was set up before. I had not read any of the previous Chip Zdarsky run before this. I think that's where we're picking up, I believe. So I don't know if that's where Jim got demoted back to a beat officer. Anyway, they're here with Jim and this character Espinosa, and they see a Killer Croc jumping out of a building into a meat truck, and Jim just obviously he calls Bruce Batman to solve the problem, and that's good. That's a pretty good start, I think. And then we have Batman investigating the crime scene, the hole in the wall where Croc had come out at Arkham Towers, which is another thing. I don't know if that's something that they had established in previous runs, and in Arkham Tower, I've never heard of it before, but I think it's kind of it's an interesting sounding location. I don't know if it just sounds interesting to me or it's just the way Jimenez draws it. I really like that picture there in the background right there. I think that's a good picture. So anyway, this psychiatrist is Killer Croc's doctor, and she's explaining to Batman about how recently Killer Croc had shed his skin, but it also seemed like he had shed his insides and his brain. And she's suggesting to Batman that he had almost sort of mentally reverted in age. And this is kind of where we see one thing that I don't really understand about what we're doing with this book is Batman says people never change. Not really. And I think that conflicts with a lot of Batman's ideals. I think at his low points, I think he could think like that, but it just seems kind of weird that with this version of Batman that we have, for him to not believe that people can change it, right? And then so we go to the next page. We flip to this next page after Batman tells the doctor that he's going to go find Croc. And we get this beautiful splash page. I love it. I love up here on the top, they have little boxes that explain what Batman's gadgets do, and I think that's cool. Another thing that we have in this first issue is the news panels. And there's nothing really important being discussed in these, just general world building stuff. But I think with the world building, it does add a lot. It reminds me a lot of The Dark Knight Returns with the news, and I thought those were great. And we get this title page, Batman, vast colors in the dark. And then so we flip to the next page, and we have our new police commissioner, Vandal Savage, speaking with the police about a new unit, tactical urban combat officers, that he's going to be using to defend the streets from criminals, including Batman, which could be an interesting storytelling mechanic, Batman versus cops. We've seen it before. We've seen it work, but I mean, I feel like if they're just going to have Batman fighting the cops for the sake of him fighting the cops, then I feel like that wouldn't be worth it. But just the idea of Batman fighting the cops isn't bad. It's just I hope they do something interesting with it. Because, you know, Batman is supposed to, at least I like a Batman that's somewhat cordial with the police. I like the idea that police look up to Batman. And so the next page after we're introduced to Vandal Savage, our new commissioner, we're introduced again to somebody old, actually, Alfred. And he's some sort of computer program that Bruce talks to. I think it's well implemented in this first issue. I don't know where they're going to go with it, but right now it's pretty good. And later on in this issue, he acts as sort of like a Jiminy Cricket in his head, and I think that kind of works. And I see in the future this Alfred being an excuse for Bruce to kind of recede into himself, and I can see that happening within these pages. So anyway, Batman is headed towards Robinson Park, following the trail that Killer Croc left, as these two young ladies are being harassed by some gang members that kind of remind me of the mutants from The Dark Knight Returns also. And then in this next page, we have Batman running them all over and, you know, beating them all up and all that delicious stuff. And after that, Batman is, he tells them to stay there. EMTs are on the way, and he tells his car to make sure they're safe. And during that interaction with the girls, he spots this butterfly and scans it, and we see more butterflies. And I think my prediction here early on with issue 1 is that butterflies symbolically are going to be important in this run with Matt Fraction. I think in this first issue, the metaphor with the butterfly is pretty obvious with Killer Croc, and the way we're gonna see in just a few seconds that he's changed as Batman follows a trail of destruction. And so Batman ends up following Croc to a museum where there's just so happens to be a butterfly exhibit. And he's just standing there looking at a giant T-Rex statue. And I think this shot is just absolutely gorgeous. I know it's not the best quality on here. You just have to see for yourself this shot of him looking up with the light and the blue butterflies is beautiful. And Batman comes in with shock gloves, ready to beat the brakes off Mr. Crocodile Man. And he sees that Croc doesn't seem to be all there. And Alfred says to him, you know, what if the doctor was right? What if he is just a child? And Alfred reminds Bruce of what it is to be a child. And then on the next page, what Bruce does next is he takes off his cowl and he goes and has a conversation with this young-minded Killer Croc. And I thought that this moment, this scene where they're just talking and relating is beautiful, where you know, Killer Croc kind of, Bruce makes him feel safe, and he confides in him for a second there, and the doctors from Arkham just come to pick him up, and is actually great. She comes with a little tiny T-Rex toy, and it's pretty adorable. I think that whole scene is just so expertly done. It reminds me of two of the animated Justice League moments. The way Croc is, it almost sort of reminds me of when Solomon Grundy was looking for his soul, you know, in that episode. If you know, you know. And it also reminded me of how Batman sat with Ace at the end of, you know, Justice League Unlimited, when she was going through all that. And we love to see a compassionate Batman, and I think that could be really, really cool in this run, and I'm excited to see this. And it just ends with him back at the Batcave and a Robin, which I guess this is supposed to be Tim. I don't know what Damian's up to. Like I said, I'm not up with modern comics, so I guess, I don't know. I initially thought it was Tim, or Damian, but the costume is giving Tim. And so that's where we end. We end with Robin seemingly getting arrested by some police officers, and we're left with a teaser. The next issue, it seems, is going to be called The Blue versus the Bat. I can imagine where that's going to go. And it's teasing new friends, new foes, and some old ones too. I gotta tell you, I'm excited for this. I think this first issue was really exciting and showed a very interesting side to Batman that often is neglected. And I think that this is, I'm very excited, and I believe that I'm gonna keep reading these. I've never, you know, picked up comics as they came out, but I think I'm gonna do that with this Batman run. And I think that's gonna be it for this video. But with that being said, if anybody watching this would like more of me covering this Batman series, or me covering anything I have on my shelf here, or even things that I don't quite have yet in my collection, I would be willing to cover and maybe even give first impressions on it. But with that being said, yeah, if anybody likes this and wants more, let me know. See ya.